Emma had always been the type of person who valued control and preparation in every part of her life. Her mornings usually followed the same pattern: wake up at 6, make coffee, review her emails, and leave early enough to avoid the chaos of the city streets. But that Tuesday, nothing went as planned. She had overslept by almost an hour, her alarm failing to ring because she had accidentally put it on silent the night before, and she rushed through her small apartment, trying to get ready in record time. Her usual neat appearance was a little disheveled, her hair wasn't perfectly brushed, and she realized midway through getting dressed that she had 2 different socks on, one black, one gray. Panicked but determined not to let the day start poorly, she grabbed her work bag, her laptop, and the stack of marketing presentation papers she had painstakingly prepared for the weekly client meeting, and dashed out the door, coffee in hand, hoping that no one would notice her small imperfections. The streets of downtown were busier than she expected, cars honking, people rushing, and she weaved through the crowd, mentally rehearsing her opening lines for the presentation, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety growing in her chest. As she reached the office building, she felt a momentary relief. Maybe she could make it in time after all. But fate seemed determined to test her. As she hurried across the lobby, a loose corner of a rug caught the heel of her shoe, and she stumbled forward, papers and coffee flying in all directions. The stack of carefully prepared documents scattered across the marble floor like confetti, and a warm splash of coffee landed dangerously close to her shoes, adding insult to injury. Emma felt her face grow hot, a burning embarrassment spreading through her chest as she realized several colleagues had stopped to watch the spectacle. Her instinct was to hide, to shrink away from the scene, but before she could recover, a familiar voice broke through the chaos. "Whoa. Emma, are you okay?" She looked up to see Jason, a colleague she had admired quietly for over a year, kneeling beside her with a concerned expression, his hands reaching out to help her steady herself. He was tall, neatly dressed, with a warm smile that somehow made her feel both flustered and strangely calm in the middle of her public humiliation. I'm fine," she stammered, trying to grab the scattered papers, but her hands were trembling, and a few sheets slipped through her fingers again. Jason crouched down beside her, helping to gather the mess, his movements careful and gentle, and Emma noticed the little details about him that she had admired from afar. The way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled, the calmness in his voice, and the reassuring patience he showed while she tried to collect herself. She felt a mixture of relief and mortification, relief that he wasn't laughing at her, mortification that she had looked so clumsy in front of everyone. Her heart pounded, and she struggled to speak without making a complete fool of herself. "Thanks. Sorry, she muttered, her words trailing into a nervous laugh that only made her cheeks hotter. Jason gave her a small, understanding smile and replied softly, "It's okay. Happens to the best of us. Don't worry about it." Emma blinked, surprised at his reaction. There was no mockery, no teasing, just an easy, comforting tone that seemed to wrap around her embarrassment like a shield. As she stood up, brushing off the papers and adjusting her bag, she couldn't help but notice the way his eyes lingered on her for a fraction longer than usual, a warmth that was impossible to ignore. For the first time that day, she felt a spark of connection amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope that maybe a clumsy fall could turn into something unexpected. Yet, the lingering panic of being late for her presentation still gnawed at her, and she felt torn between gratitude for Jason's kindness and the anxiety of facing her boss with wet papers, coffee stains, and a racing heartbeat. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the memory of the fall, the scattered papers, and Jason's gentle presence stayed with her, planting the seed of a thought that would not leave her. Sometimes, the most embarrassing moments in life were also the ones that could bring people closer in ways she had never anticipated. As she hurried to the elevator, she stole a glance at Jason, who was still gathering a few stray sheets, and she realized that this single moment, so awkward, so humiliating, might just be the start of something more than she had ever expected. It was a lesson in humility, vulnerability, and the unexpected ways human connection could emerge, even in the midst of chaos. Even though she still felt the sting of embarrassment, she felt a strange anticipation, a quiet thrill that maybe, just maybe, this clumsy accident would turn into a meaningful chapter of her life. And as the elevator doors closed with a soft ding, Emma couldn't help but wonder, could a single fall, a single moment of exposed weakness, become the very thing that opened her heart to something new? Emma spent most of the morning avoiding the staff kitchen, her mind replaying the embarrassing fall over and over, imagining every possible way her colleagues might have laughed or judged her, even though she knew deep down that no one had actually mocked her. She felt awkward, flustered, and a little insecure, wishing she could just disappear for the rest of the day. But lunchtime arrived faster than she expected, and she reluctantly made her way to the break room, hoping to grab a quick sandwich and maybe hide in a corner with her phone. To her surprise, Jason was already there, standing near the counter with a sandwich and a cup of coffee in his hand. His casual smile immediately caught her off guard. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering her the coffee with no hint of teasing or judgment, just pure, quiet kindness. Emma blinked, feeling a mix of relief, gratitude, and an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. "Thank you," she murmured, feeling her cheeks heat up again, though this time not from embarrassment but from the gentle care he was showing. They found an empty table by the window and sat down, the soft hum of the office around them fading as they shared the moment. Jason broke the silence first, laughing lightly as he admitted, "Honestly, I've had mornings worse than yours. Once, I spilled an entire tray of lunch on the floor in front of the whole team. I thought I'd never live it down." Emma couldn't help but laugh, the sound coming easier this time, unburdened by shame. She found herself sharing a story of her own small disasters, how she had once sent a client email with the wrong attachment or gotten locked out of her apartment in pajamas, each story making her feel lighter, as though her embarrassment was slowly dissolving in the shared humor. Jason listened intently, occasionally smiling, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief at her tales, and Emma felt a bond forming, one built on openness, trust, and mutual understanding. It struck her that this simple moment, a shared lunch, shared laughter, a kind gesture, was teaching her something important. Vulnerability wasn't weakness, and admitting mistakes could bring people closer instead of pushing them away. She noticed small details about him she had never focused on before, the way he wrinkled his nose when he laughed, the subtle way his voice softened when he asked about her day, and the gentle patience with which he waited for her to finish her sentences. For the first time, Emma realized that embarrassment could be transformed into connection, that what she had initially feared as a humiliating moment had actually opened a door to genuine human warmth. She felt a flutter of something deeper, something she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before, attraction. It wasn't rushed or overwhelming, but it was there, quietly growing in the background of their shared conversation. They lingered over their lunch, neither wanting to break the easy rhythm that had formed, and Emma noticed how comfortable it felt just to be herself around him, without masks, without pretense. Jason's presence was reassuring, almost magnetic, and she found herself watching the way he gestured with his hands, the way he made eye contact when he was genuinely interested in what she was saying. Time passed quickly, and before they realized it, the lunch break was almost over, yet neither of them seemed ready to return fully to the structured work environment. As they packed their things, Jason hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "I'm glad you're okay. That morning, I wasn't sure how to approach you, but I'm really glad I did." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of pride and a hint of something she couldn't yet name. "Me too," she replied, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. They walked back to their desks together, exchanging small smiles, subtle gestures, and quiet, unspoken understanding that the awkward fall had unexpectedly created a moment of closeness neither of them had anticipated. Emma realized, as she settled back into her work, that the day had shifted in a way she hadn't expected. Her embarrassment had led to laughter, genuine connection, and perhaps the first gentle spark of something deeper with Jason. The incident, which had seemed like a disaster at first, was now a story of growth, understanding, and the delicate beginnings of emotional intimacy. And as the afternoon sun filtered through the office windows, Emma caught Jason's eye across the room, and for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine that a single clumsy morning could be the start of something far more meaningful than she had ever dared to hope. She understood then that life had a strange way of turning mistakes into lessons, and that the most awkward, vulnerable moments often held the seeds for trust, attraction, and even the possibility of love over the next week. Emma and Jason found themselves spending more time together, their connection growing in subtle, unspoken ways that neither of them had anticipated. They shared more coffee breaks, exchanged quiet jokes in the hallway, and lingered just a little longer when passing each other's desks, each encounter adding layers of familiarity and comfort. Emma noticed that she was thinking about him more often, her heart skipping a beat when he smiled or even looked her way, and she realized that what had begun as a simple moment of embarrassment was transforming into something tender and meaningful. Jason, for his part, seemed to carry a quiet anticipation in his voice and in his eyes, a warmth that Emma found both comforting and exhilarating. One rainy afternoon, when the office was nearly empty and the soft patter of raindrops tapped against the windows, they found themselves alone by the break room, each holding a cup of coffee, watching the rain streak the glass. The atmosphere was calm yet charged with a gentle tension neither fully understood, a mixture of longing, curiosity, and the thrill of unspoken attraction. Jason finally spoke, his voice low and careful, as if measuring each word before letting it out. "Emma, I've been meaning to tell you something since that day you fell. I've been thinking about it a lot, not because of what happened, but because of how you reacted. You were brave and honest, and even though it was awkward, it made me realize how much I like seeing the real you." Emma felt her breath catch, a swirl of nervous excitement and hope making her pulse race. She had imagined confessing her own feelings in 100 different scenarios, but none had felt like this, so raw, so sincere, so beautifully vulnerable. She looked at him, noticing the subtle tension in his shoulders, the soft vulnerability in his gaze, and the steady sincerity in his voice, and she knew that this was the moment where they could move beyond jokes and shared coffee into something deeper. Swallowing her fear, she admitted softly, "Jason, I think I've felt the same way, maybe longer than I realized. I've just never said it out loud." His eyes widened slightly, but then a slow, genuine smile spread across his face, and Emma felt her chest swell with relief, joy, and a delicate, fluttering excitement. They stayed there for a while, the rain falling in steady sheets outside, sharing quiet conversation, laughter, and moments of comfortable silence, each pause speaking more than words ever could. Emma noticed the little things, the way his hand brushed against hers accidentally, the way he tilted his head slightly when listening intently, the reassuring nods and soft chuckles that seemed to encourage her to open up more. The awkward embarrassment of the past week now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by an intimacy that was tender, emotional, and slowly blossoming into something neither of them could ignore. They talked about their dreams, their small fears, their favorite childhood memories, and the little moments in life that had shaped them, each story weaving a subtle thread of connection between their hearts. Emma realized that what she had once thought was a fleeting attraction was turning into a bond based on mutual respect, understanding, and shared vulnerability. Jason, noticing her thoughtful expressions and subtle smiles, felt a growing protectiveness and affection he hadn't expected, a desire to be part of her life in a meaningful way. By the time the rain had eased and the office lights dimmed in preparation for closing, both Emma and Jason understood that a delicate shift had occurred. What had started as a single embarrassing incident had become the foundation for trust, emotional intimacy, and a budding romance. The realization brought a quiet thrill, a tender anticipation of what might come next, and a deep gratitude that life, in its unpredictable way, had turned a clumsy fall and scattered papers into a moment of emotional clarity, honesty, and connection. Walking back toward their desks, side by side, they exchanged glances filled with meaning, a silent promise that this was only the beginning. The air between them was charged with new possibilities, the thrill of mutual attraction tempered by the warmth of friendship and trust. Emma, usually cautious and measured, felt a liberation she hadn't known she needed. She realized that opening her heart, even just a little, was worth the risk of vulnerability. Jason, equally aware of the delicate nature of their evolving feelings, felt a quiet joy in being seen and appreciated for who he truly was. In the hours that followed, both of them continued their work with a subtle sense of anticipation, each glance, each word, each small interaction carrying the weight of unspoken affection and curiosity about what the future might hold. It was a week of discovery, a lesson in patience, courage, and the gentle power of honesty, showing that even a brief, awkward moment could blossom into a meaningful connection that neither of them had anticipated. Emma realized that attraction wasn't always loud or sudden, it could be quiet, patient, and deeply emotional, growing in the spaces between laughter, shared stories, and understanding glances. Jason understood that showing care and noticing the small, real parts of a person could create bonds far stronger than charm or flattery alone. And as the office lights dimmed and they left together, sharing small talk, laughter, and occasional shy smiles, both felt the undeniable pull of a connection that had begun with embarrassment but had grown into a lesson in love, trust, and the delicate beginnings of romance, leaving them both wondering how many more unexpected moments life might hold in store for them over the next few months. Emma and Jason's connection deepened in ways that neither of them had expected, their relationship evolving naturally from friendship to a quiet, tender romance built on shared trust, understanding, and small, meaningful moments. Every day brought new opportunities to learn more about each other, whether it was lingering at the coffee machine for a few extra minutes just to exchange jokes, walking side by side to the parking lot while sharing thoughts about their weekends, or quietly supporting one another during stressful workdays, their subtle gestures of care and attention speaking louder than words ever could. Emma discovered that vulnerability, which had once terrified her, could be a source of strength, and Jason realized that compassion and patience could turn even the most awkward beginnings into something beautiful and lasting. They spent lunch breaks discussing their dreams, fears, and memories from childhood, discovering that they had more in common than they had ever imagined, from favorite books and movies to the way they both secretly enjoyed quiet, rainy afternoons. The memory of Emma's clumsy fall, once a source of embarrassment, became a cherished story they would often laugh about together, a reminder that life's little mistakes could bring people closer in unexpected ways. Each time Emma glanced at Jason, she saw not only a colleague or a friend but someone who truly cared about her, who had been there in her moment of vulnerability and had never judged her, and that thought made her heart swell with gratitude and affection. Jason, in turn, found himself thinking about the small things Emma did, how her eyes lit up when she laughed, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the quiet determination she showed when facing challenges, and he realized that his admiration had quietly grown into love. Weekends were sometimes spent exploring the city together, attending small cultural events, or just taking long walks, talking about everything and nothing, the comfort of their presence making even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. They learned to communicate not only with words but with small, unspoken gestures, a reassuring touch on the arm, a shared smile across a crowded room, or a hand reaching for another during a quiet moment, each action reinforcing the trust and affection that had grown between them. Emma realized that embarrassment and mistakes were not marks of weakness but opportunities for connection, and Jason saw that showing kindness and empathy could transform awkward moments into lasting memories. The lessons they had learned from that first chaotic morning, the importance of patience, the value of vulnerability, and the beauty of genuine human connection, guided their relationship, shaping a bond that was both emotionally rich and deeply comforting. Even when disagreements arose, as they naturally do in any relationship, they approached them with respect, understanding, and a willingness to listen, remembering that their foundation was built on honesty and care, not perfection. The office, once a place of tension and routine, now felt warmer whenever they were near each other, the laughter, quiet conversations, and shared understanding creating a small world of intimacy within the busy environment. Months later, when Emma reflected on that first morning, the fall, the scattered papers, and Jason's gentle presence, she realized that what had seemed like a simple, embarrassing moment had been a turning point, a lesson in courage, humility, and the unexpected ways life could bring people together. Jason often said that it was the small, imperfect moments that had revealed the real Emma to him, moments that no polished presentation or carefully curated impression could have ever achieved. Together, they celebrated each other's strengths, supported each other's weaknesses, and created a safe, loving space where both could be authentic and vulnerable without fear of judgment. They laughed at past embarrassments, shared hopes for the future, and discovered that love could grow slowly, tenderly, and deliberately, each day reinforcing the bond that had begun in an awkward, unexpected way. Emma learned to embrace the unpredictability of life, understanding that a single fall or mistake did not define her but could open doors to connection, growth, and love. Jason discovered the joy of witnessing someone he cared about rise above embarrassment with courage and humor, deepening his admiration and affection for her in ways that were both emotional and romantic. Together, they built a relationship that was steady, warm, and emotionally fulfilling, proving that life's most awkward or humiliating moments could carry the seeds of meaningful connection, trust, and even love if approached with patience, kindness, and openness. And as they continued their journey side by side, navigating work, life, and quiet moments of intimacy, they both carried the lesson with them, that vulnerability was not a weakness, that mistakes could become opportunities, and that the smallest, most embarrassing incidents sometimes held the greatest potential to change hearts, build bonds, and create a story of love, understanding, and personal growth that neither of them would ever forget. In the end, what had started as a single moment of public embarrassment had transformed into a lifelong lesson, a story of emotional depth, romantic connection, and mutual growth, leaving both Emma and Jason grateful for the unexpected twists that life had brought them and hopeful for the future they would continue to build together.